righty here. We'll just go ahead and get started. The people that join us at a later time will just be joining us. Good morning, everyone. My name is Keith Rand. Good to see everyone this morning. You're all here at CBN, and like I always say, you could be someplace else, but we're very happy that you decided to join us this morning. So we normally have anywhere between 10 to 15 people, and they kind of get in as they get in, but I always like to start on time so that we give our speaker adequate time. The way we normally start this thing off is we do a little bit of a round robin to introduce ourselves. And so what I'd like to do this morning is I'll start with me, and then I'll call you by name the way I see you on my screen. And if you would, take about a minute or so to introduce yourself. Make sure that you tell us where you are speaking from, what business you're in, and also give us what's a good lead for you, if you don't mind. So I'm going to go ahead. I'll start with myself. My name is Keith Rand. I own a company called First Quality Printing, which I bought from Jim. He snookered me into that, by the by. And I'm semi-retired. So that's what I'm doing right now. I spent a lot of time consulting for my son as we look at purchasing other kinds of business. With that, I am going to hand this over to Rhoda Israelov, please.
Morning, all. I'm in Indianapolis as well. I'm Rhoda Israelov, and my company is Say It For You. And we do just that. My team and I are ghostwriters for the web. We write blogs for professional practitioners and for business owners. And we also write the content that's on their website. So we say it for you. Right now, I am looking for a retirement community to blog for. So if you have a connection with the retirement community in, or not necessarily even in or around Indianapolis, but anywhere, that would be a good assignment for me. And now I want to show you my new background. And Saturday, I have a gentleman coming to hang blackout drapes. I'm going the whole hog here with my green screen and after your talk. So thank you for the hints.
Thank you, Rhoda. Craig, you'll be our speaker, so I'll save you for last, if you don't mind. Jim Shepard, please.
Good morning. I'm in Panama City Beach, Florida. Got out of Indianapolis last week after the first snow. Been a CBN member for ever almost. Rhoda and I were around at the very beginning of this group. I'm just enjoying retirement after spending over 40 years in the graphic arts business.
Thank you, Jim. David Garrison, please.
Good morning, Dave Garrison. I'm with Mutual of Omaha Mortgage from near Indianapolis, near Martinsville, Indiana. A good lead for me would be a wealth advisor or an individual who's interested in learning more about utilizing housing wealth in their retirement.
Thank you, David. John Vandersall, please.
Good morning from Indianapolis. John Vandersall, a residential real estate agent with FC Tucker. I office out of the Keystone and the Crossing branch. And Keith, I always like your words, how you open up saying how we could all be anywhere, but we chose to be here this morning. I was absent last Thursday because I took a ski day. Load up my skis and went down to North, so it was nice for that. A good lead for me. We continue, and we're predicting for the next 12 months low inventory. So anybody who's thinking about selling, I'd welcome that conversation.
Not a problem, John. Dow Tippett, please. So let me circle back to you because you're not syncing up yet. Jerry Luco.
Jerry Luco, franchise business source. So I help people that want to be business owners find a franchise business that they can own, grow, and love, as I like to say. I work with a little over 300 different businesses, 300, 325, something like that, at all investment levels, all involvement levels, and really take care of them from the beginning of identification all the way through the evaluation process and finding them funding and a lawyer to review the FDD, and just really hold their hand throughout the entire process to cut through the clutter and the confusion and the fear that hits people that are first-time buyers of business. So that's
and you have a cat. We have our
I do
friend
have-
this morning.
I do have a cat. She came to say hello. She waved her tail at you, and then she had to leave.
Yeah, she's important. All right, we'll circle back to you, Dow. We'll circle back. And hey, Dow, do us a favor. Send it in the chat, who you are, et cetera, so we can make it work. Mr. Mike Ryan, the man in, we're going to pay Mike's light bill. Somebody send Mike some money. Mike, if you would, give us an introduction, please.
Mike Ryan, partner, Leader Pro Horticulture Services in Indianapolis. I do have a light bill every month. It's just that I've got this backlight, and I'm going to move my office out to the garage. So hopefully next week it'll be better.
All right, no problem, Mike. Appreciate that. So Craig will be our speaker, so we'll circle back to him. I always like to give speakers plenty of time here. Got two announcements. Number one, check your spam folders. I still am having people saying that they're not getting the information. Jerry, you got it. Nod for me. Didn't you get it? So I don't know why some people are getting it and some are not, but please check your spam folders. Couple of things. Next week, our speaker is Tim Johnson. He's currently out of Ohio. He is working in the cannabis industry. That's a very interesting industry. So it'll be interesting for us to learn something about that. For bookings, we are booked up through May 20th. So I am now looking for speakers after May 20th. And so that we can make sure that we give them plenty of time. And then last but not least, we will have an admin day, April 1st. So all your complaints, you want to chop Mr. Rand's head off, et cetera, save them till April 1st, and we'll get that straightened out. But we do have some administrative things that we need to take care of on April 1st. And so that will be an admin day. And we'll try to have at least 3 admin days this year. So with that being said, I like to give the speaker plenty time to get on board. And so I am now going to make this the Craig P. Anderson Show. And if all the rest of us would please, if you would please mute yourselves, and I'll let Craig introduce himself and he can begin. Craig, you're on top now. You have anything to share?
Sure. Well,
A screen.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I just go. It's easier this way. It's easier this way and hopefully far more entertaining. But I gave up PowerPoints. I spent 25 years in corporate America and Fortune 100 companies, living and dying by PowerPoint images. So if I can avoid doing a PowerPoint ever, I prefer to do that. But by way of introduction, this is Craig Anderson. My business is ClearPath Coaching and Consulting. I've been around for about 3 years in this capacity. As I said, I did spend 25 years in corporate America working for Fortune 100 companies, worked for Chase, running a national sales team for their student loan business, ran divisions and national businesses for Sallie Mae. So I was one of those evil student loan people. But at the end of that time, as that program changed, I actually went to work for the what was left of the original USA group here locally, the not-for-profit, and we started a business called Student Connections, which helped colleges help their students repay their loans. So I was trying to do a little karmic balancing there, and we did some great work there. In the last year I was there, we helped 250,000 students get $2.5 billion worth of student loan debt current. So, and that's where a lot of the story that I will tell today was from that last piece. But I am kind of the unnatural business executive and Fortune 100 employee. I have a degree in English. I have over 11,000 comic books I've collected since I was 13 years old. And somehow I grew up and became a corporate officer for these big Fortune 100 companies. And so when I got there, I had a sum total in college of 3 business classes, none of which I did very well in. And so I paid a lot of attention to these companies to try and figure out, okay, they're all big and successful. How do they maintain this kind of consistency over time? And what I came to realize is it's a few things. It's a relentless attention to detail. It is having solid people strategies, planning and process that they've really got nailed down. And when I went to the small business, when we launched our business out of what was left of USA Group at the time, I wanted to figure out how to replicate that success, to say, all right, what these guys do, they do amazing work, but they also have legions of people to do it for them. So how do I take what they do there, scale it to the small business format to still have that discipline without just being overwhelmed by the work? And what we did at Student Connections was we found some tools that helped us kind of replicate that environment and really stay focused on it. So when we spun the division out, it had about 250,000 in revenue. And after 3 years, we were at 5 million in revenue. We grew from about 25 to 70 people in a largely call center business, which are notoriously difficult to maintain turnover and things like that. And we actually were able to keep our turnover very low. And we were actually named a great place to work in Indianapolis the last year I was there before we sold the business to a company out of Texas. So these do work. And that kind of brings me to some of the topic I have today. So I'll just jump in, Keith, if that's okay, and kind of go from there. I think it's about 20 minutes that we're shooting for. If I start speaking too fast, which I have a tendency to do, just raise your hand and tell me to slow down. I will say I don't have many connections to many of you, but John, I'm friends with Andy Deemer, who I think is out of your office there at Keystone. And I have bought and sold way too many houses with Andy Deemer over the years. And so at any rate, it's good to meet you all. So yeah, as I said, when I went to USA Group, there was kind of this division that had been kicked around when, as I said, the student loan world got turned on its head back in 2010 when the Obama administration decided to move private lenders out of the student loan space and into the government originating all the loans. And if I don't want to go down that tangent, but if you want to call me and hear all kinds of great stories about it, I'd love to tell you about it. But when that happened, this division had done a lot of things and they were kind of rudderless, and the leader who had been there was pretty burned out. And so when I was brought in by the CEO, he said, go down and figure out what to do with that group. And one of the things that I found right out of the gate was the group was a little bit all over the place. They hadn't had a lot of leadership. They were all very busy, but one was off doing this thing, one was off doing this. And they were kind of stovepiped off, and they just were really inefficient. It was a lot of good people trying to do good things, but without anything keeping them aligned around what it was that they had to do. And so my first few months there were really spent just figuring out, of these 10 or 15 things going on, which are the ones that we even want to continue to mess with and do something with that are actually revenue generating, mission driven. With being a not-for-profit, we were very focused on the mission of helping students. And so that's where I came down to kind of these couple of core principles of what we wanted to work on with the default prevention business. And we did some borrower education pieces as well. But it was a real struggle to get these people who'd spent 3 years doing whatever they wanted all roped into the same idea. And the struggle for me was just, how do I get all these people together when they're just not used to it? And how do I create some unifying ideas and unifying principles? Because if you don't have your leadership team, if you think about not that I went to Harvard, I went to University of Florida, but if you think about all those big Ivy schools and those guys sculling down the river, they all are rowing in precision and they're all going in the same direction at the same pace and the same speed. And if they don't, the boat's all over the place. So getting the team aligned is such a crucial piece for going forward, because it builds efficiency into your organization of what you're doing. It helps you to make decisions faster, because if everybody's together, you have the ability to have the information you need to execute and make decisions quickly. It provides clarity because you're out of the stovepipes and everybody knows what's going on. And one of the dangers when you don't have a team aligned around a common mission is you find out in the bowels of the company, and this is whether it's 20 people in the company or, tens of thousands of people in the company, there's all these little side projects and pet projects that are going on that aren't really driving the business forward, but they're taking time and they're costing you money. And the other thing is, when you have the team really aligned, it allows you as the owner to delegate, or the leader. One of the things that I work with a lot of my clients is they've started businesses. My real core client is probably the business owner who's grown from around 20 employees. And they've just realized, man, I used to just tell people what to do all day and it was great. But now I got too many people and nothing gets done because I'm in the way, because nobody can get to me because everybody else is getting to me. So how do I start building a team around me? And they don't want to do it because it's their baby and they want things done the way they want it done. And they're afraid they're going to lose control. So having the team aligned around some central core principles that I'll talk about really helps you to kind of get out of the day-to-day and, you know, roll your sleeves back down and get up to the leadership role of your company and start focusing on the future. If we've seen anything over the last 2 years, one, I think this last year has told us it's important to have a plan. So at least we know how far off we are from the plan as we're going through. But the other thing is we've got a really whipsaw changing environment right now as things start to come out. And if you're not spending some time as the owner of your business looking to the future, at least 6 to 12 months out, if not further, you're going to get sidewise with something that's going to come up that you didn't anticipate. So I really encourage owners to start spending some time looking to the future and getting out of the bowels of the business every day as much as they can. So I was struggling at the point to say, all right, how do I get this team together? How do I get these guys organized around these central principles? Because the reality was we had to make some difficult people decisions before we could start doing the things we needed to do. So I was already starting out a little bit behind the 8 ball. But what I got very frustrated trying to figure out, I've got to put a business plan together for this. I don't want one of these corporate 75-page business plans that I'm going to spend months doing and then I'm going to toss it on a shelf and I'm never going to look at it again. I need to get these guys on the same page. I need a business plan that's on one page. So I Googled one-page business plan. And that became the core tool that I used to move the business, start getting the team moving forward. And that's a core piece of the business that I have today is helping people implement that one-page plan. So what we really tried to do was to start to communicate to get the team aligned. And the first place that we started was to try and get some clarity around what the business was going to be. And in the methodology that we used, we called that our vision statement. And, you know, if you've been around business long enough, and some of you folks have been, right, vision and mission get interchanged. Typically, you know, the PR people or the marketing people write these wonderful flowery messages and then you stencil it on the wall and everybody feels good. But it doesn't tell you anything about where the business is going. And for me to get these guys moving, I needed to give them a vision of the future. So we created a vision statement that was very concise, but more importantly, very specific about in 3 years, this is what the business is going to look like. We're going to be doing this much revenue. We're going to have this many employees. We're going to be working with this type of client. We are going to the kind of business structure that we were going to have, and get that really clear description of what the business is going to look like. Because then people can rally around and try and understand, okay, how do I fit into this? And this works whether you're a company of 5 people or, you know, there's Fortune 500 companies that use this methodology. And for those of you who are interested in ideas like employee engagement, one of the big core tenets of keeping your employees engaged is that people can identify with the mission and see their role in it. So that's why we want to give some clarity around that so they can understand it. And then the mission that we came up with was just the idea of why do we exist? You know, that's a very simple thing to think about, but you created your business. All of you created a business or entered into something with a problem you wanted to solve. You saw a better way to do things. You wanted to help a certain community. You wanted to help, you know, grow something. There was a reason you created your business. So we want to get lasered in on what is the mission? Why does this business exist? The next piece, once we got that, and again, if you have questions, just stop me because I'll just ramble and go. But the next piece that we looked at was this idea of creating objectives for the business. So instead of being out 3 years, we wanted to come back and say, all right, at the end of 1 year, what does success look like? And a lot of times people think of objectives as projects, and that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the core numbers that tell us our business is successful. That's one of the things I took away from the Fortune 100 companies is every quarter we used to have to make a pilgrimage when I was at Chase from Indianapolis to New York City. And we go up to the 14th floor where Jamie Dimon and all those guys hung out. I was always terrified I'd run into Jamie in the hallway. But we'd sit down with his next level, guy named Charlie Scharf. And here's a guy who doesn't know our business, doesn't live it into the day-to-day, but could dive deep into the numbers. I'll get back to that question. Thank you. I'm going to pull up the chat just so I can see those. And they could dive into our numbers like nobody's business. And what was crazier is they'd ask us questions that not only did we not know the answer to, we never even thought of the question. And so these objectives are really the measures of success for your business. And they're numbers like revenue, They're numbers like marketing efficiency. They're numbers about product or your operating efficiency, and looking at things around not only the lagging indicators like revenue. Revenue is a great number to track and we all want to track it. But by the time we figure out we're screwed on revenue, it's way too late. So we want to be looking at the leading indicators too, of how many sales calls we're making or how much activity do we have in our marketing pipeline. So we really start driving towards getting some solid objectives that we can track and measure every month from the top of the business. And then we get everybody focused on just 5 to 7, no more than 9 numbers. A lot of times companies have like 40 numbers they're tracking every month. And that's when you start getting to the point where, 1, it's somebody's full-time job. And 2, there's actually another system out there where I see these companies hiring full-time people just to manage their planning process. And they're small businesses. And I don't know why that makes sense. So we want to keep it simple. So that's what I really focused on with the business. Say, all right, what are the 5 to 7 core numbers that we're going to track every month, so we know if we're doing well or if we're doing poorly, so we can see what's going on. The other piece was to get people aligned around some strategies or answer the question of how do we do business, right? If I'm the owner and I have this vision of how I want my business done, there's a way in my head of how I want our clients treated, how I want our employees treated, how I want our marketing to look, how I want our sales to look, how I want us to operate, right? These are things that are really important to me as the owner of my business. But if I don't get those out of my head and in front of my people, I'm going to be constantly frustrated, slapping my head against the wall because they're not doing what I want them to do, but I haven't clearly identified how I want them to run the business. And that's the next piece to align the team, as we create these ideas of strategies or how we're going to execute the business, so that everybody knows this is how we handle client issues. This is how we hire. This is how we fire. This is how we make sure we're going to invest this much because we want this much efficiency rate on our phone answer lines. If you have ever run a call center business, it's really just a math problem, how quick you are to answer the phone. So we start identifying the strategies of how we want the business to be run. Then we communicate those out. The last piece is we sit down and we say, okay, well, now we know how we want the business to run. We know the numbers that we want to hit, but we realize, holy crow, we don't have the things we need to do all these. We don't have what we need in place to execute on our strategies or achieve our objectives. So those become our projects that we work on. And we identify over the next year, what are the projects each quarter, no more than 3 big business building projects. And we identify what those are. We identify who's responsible for them. And we clearly outline all that for all the team. So now we know the work that has to be done. We know how we want to do the work. We know what success looks like. And the last piece is, and this is a piece a lot of people drop, is somebody will say, well, okay, I stood up in front of everybody and I said, here's how we're going to do things. And then, the skies opened up, a light penetrated down, and everybody understood what I said. That is, and Rhoda, you may know this since you do a lot of copywriting, right? Nobody hears you the first time you say something. It takes like 12 times before people actually hear you. And just about the time you're so sick and tired of giving the message out to your team, that's when just the first few people are actually hearing what you have to say. So communication is a core principle towards getting your team aligned through the whole organization. Because if you don't say this every time you're in front of small groups, big groups, they're never going to understand how it is you want your business to be run. And again, this works if you've got 5 employees, 25 employees, or 500 employees. It's so crucial that you get everybody to understand all these principles and what success looks like. And I really encourage people to work with transparency. It's not only saying, here's the numbers we're trying to achieve, here's how we're doing. Because here's the thing, a lot of times owners will say, well, I don't want to freak everybody out by showing them, oh, times are a little challenging, or get everybody too complacent by saying things are going to go well. Here's the thing, everybody in your business knows how things are going, right? In my business was a call center business. If we were not getting it done on the sales side, they knew, because they weren't as busy as they thought they should be. And if I don't tell them why they're not busy, and I don't, publicly flog my sales guy at a town hall or something, they, which I didn't do. But if they see bad things happening and no one's telling them the context of it, they make up their own reasons for why things are the way they are. And everything starts going south from there. So communication is crucial to getting this alignment for your team, because if you don't, everybody just makes up their own version of the story, and you won't have that ability to start delegating work and feeling comfortable that I don't have to live in my business every single day because nobody will know how I want things run. So we want to make sure we kind of flow that communication down. And then this works as we continue to grow. So a lot of times I see, as I said before, these business owners who are surrounded by a team of helpers. They hired 4 or 5 helpers and they do the things and they tell them what to do. And then they get too big and, they can't get things done very well. And I actually had a client who said to me, I used to be the person who drove things forward and now I'm the person who's in everybody's way. And I need to get out of everybody's way. Craig, help me figure out how to do that. So we started talking about how to start building some leaders around them. And you don't just suddenly build a team of 5 leaders around you in a small business. That would be insanity. But you can start figuring out where are the areas where I need some help managing the team. What are the areas I'm not particularly great at, but somebody else could manage it better than I do. So if you're not a great salesperson, but you really love the inner operating of the business, maybe your first hire is the salesperson. If you're me with my English degree, the first person you really want to hire is somebody who can manage the numbers and the money for you because it's just easier that way. So what we do then is we say, all right, now I have my plan as the owner. Now all my leaders are going to create their own one-page business plan. But here's the trick. Nothing sits on their plan that doesn't tie back to an element of my plan as the business owner. So I start building vertical alignment between the work they're doing and the goals they have and the way they're doing things and the way I want things done. The other piece that becomes interesting to me, and it goes back to the idea of stovepipes. I was actually at a meeting of a company and I met with the owner and we kind of laid her plan out. And then all the team, I met with them individually. And then they have the big reveal party where everybody presents their plans. And we went around the table and all the salespeople and marketing people were talking about the great stuff they were going to do and all this content they were going to sell and these new modules and everything. And then it came around to the person whose job it was to write all the content. And she just looked at everybody and she said, I can't do 10% of the work that you guys have just outlined. And if we hadn't sat around the table and started building horizontal alignment among the team members, they wouldn't have found out to the third, fourth month of the year that all these revenue projections were going to go south because somebody couldn't deliver for them because they weren't working and communicating effectively. So these become the issues that we start building in that layers down of this plan. And you can bring it down even to the individual level of how your one-page plan for your leadership, for your business. And so we start to build that vertical alignment and horizontal alignment for the team. And that's what allows us to successfully start driving the business forward. So the last piece that I'll just touch on, and then I'll open it up to questions, is a plan is only as good as how much you pay attention to it. And like I said, those big 75-page plans that nobody looks at are useless because nobody remembers it, even though they spent most of their life working on it for 1 month of the year. So what I really work with, the place this falls down is if you don't pay attention every month to this. So you get your whole team around, or if it's just you just get you around and you sit down and do a monthly business review to track your progress against your scorecards. So if I've laid out these objectives and these numbers, I need to go back and look to say, all right, here's what I thought, here's what I did last year, if I have that data. Here's what I thought I would do in January. Here's what I thought I would do in February. Here's what I actually did. And then based on the information I have looking into the future, do I need to adjust my forecast up or down based on things I wasn't aware of when I set these numbers out? So I sit down and I review those scorecards every month. The other piece that is important is on all those action plans that I talked about, the work we have to do to be able to execute our strategies and achieve our objectives. I do a check-in every month on the status of those projects. So are they on time? Are they on budget? And do you need help getting over a hump in the process? And I go to the person who we've tasked with the ownership of that to do it. So that's kind of how we start building that alignment around the team, because if everybody in the organization doesn't understand what's important, you have a tendency to just go off on your own. And that, I would say, is even for me as my own kind of solopreneur business that I have. If I don't sit down and have the discipline to look at my numbers every month, everything starts to get away from me as well. So that's why I say these kind of ideas and principles really work no matter how big you are, and they can live with you as you continue to grow. So that is the idea of how to align the team. And I'm happy to open it up for questions at this point. I did get a direct message question that I'm happy to answer too, just to get the juices flowing.
Sounds like a plan here. Hey, I did send you the direct message. You had brought up the fact that somebody says you want to tell your team why they exist. Maybe it's me, but I've had employees in the past, they exist to make money. They're pretty clear about why they exist. So that may be a conflict between why the organization exists versus what the employees see. So how do you deal with that, or how do you reconcile that?
Well, there's a lot of ways to make money, right? So you don't just go out and put up a sign that says, "I'm here to make money, bring me money," right? You identify what is the problem, how am I going to make the money, right? I see a business opportunity. I think you do printing, right? So there's clearly a need out there, and maybe you see a way in your business to do printing differently, more efficiently, more effectively than somebody else. So the problem and the mission that you have is to help, either maybe it's a specific segment, but it's really about the how you're making the money. There's nothing wrong with saying I exist to make money, but there's a way that I make money. And you probably do the same repeatable thing all the time to make the money. So that's really where I would come back to the mission, is to say, and it could be, it's to earn revenue streams for the company by solving whatever this problem is. And I agree, there's a lot of times that the employees just exist to make money. And I think that they say that, but what we're seeing, especially, the millennials, and the oldest millennial now is like 40 something. But, more and more, the research shows that people want to align with something. Even, it doesn't matter if the mission is, clean, emptying garbage cans, or, making the world safe for mankind. People want to know that their work means something. And that's why you tie it down even to, the call center person or the administrative assistant. Everybody has a role in that mission. And I think our job as the owners helps them see how their job moves the whole thing forward, so that we can achieve the objective. And sometimes you're gonna have to tease that out of people. But, and even for them, right? If it's like, I'm only here to make money because this is the way I know to make money. Well, why do you want to make money? Well, I want to make money to support my 11,000 comic book collection habit that I've got. Okay, well, that's your mission, and this is how you do it. And I need you aligned with me so that I can help you fund your really bad habit.
Okay, that's a good one. Anyone else with a question? Just raise your hand so I can see you if you do. So I've got a couple of them here while the rest of the people are getting.
Sure.
I wrote down the note when you said comic books. There's a reason for this.
Okay.
11,000 though.
Yeah.
11,000.
It's a problem.
We all have drug habits, but 11,000, you got to tell us why. You got to tell us why.
It's crazy. So I started buying them. Well, when I was a little kid, I got a book. I was the prototypical kid who got a bunch of really great comics from my uncle that my mother promptly sold in a garage sale. One of those books today is worth $700. So thanks to my mom. For me, I was a really shy, introverted kid, and it was a way for me to be entertained, and I loved reading anyway. And I have just continued to buy them. I get kind of invested in the stories, and I have just continued to do it. I don't buy nearly as many as I used to.
You don't need to. You're 11,000 ahead, buddy. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
Let me tell you, when I just moved into a condo just at the beginning of COVID, watching those moving guys, when I showed them 60 boxes that all weigh about 25 pounds a piece, they were less than happy with me when they saw that. And yeah, but it's been a fun habit, and it's fun to pull them out and look at them.
Okay, that just caught my eye there.
Yeah, it usually does.
Yeah, I had a second question. When you're talking about this alignment, and you say relentless attention to detail, I've had big teams, I've had lots of people. Now I'm down solo entrepreneur, but I'm now ramping up and consulting back with my son on some project. That relentless attention to detail, that takes time and effort. And a lot of us, I'm not saying any names like Keith Rand, that time and effort is a lot of time and a lot of effort.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think that's why, as you grow, you can spend more time looking at it or bring someone in to look at it for you. And that's why we start out to say, what are the 5 to 7 objectives that really are going to move the needle on my business? And instead of paying attention to 40 of them right out of the gate, just identify those 5 to 7 and never lose track of them. If I know there's 5 to 7 numbers, that if I watch those 5 to 7 numbers every month, and that's how many sales calls you're solopreneur, how many connections am I making on LinkedIn, or how many calls am I making? How many network meetings am I having? Figure out what those things are that matter the most, and pay attention to those relentlessly, but keep the number small. And then as you grow, and what happens is as you grow and I get down to that next level, one objective for me at the top of the house could come down to my salesperson, and that one objective translates into 4 things they have to track, right? So that becomes that, but they're paying attention to something I've said is important. They're just doing it at a different level of granularity than I am. So that's why be relentless, but focus on the ones that are manageable, and they should be easy to pull numbers too. If it takes you 25 minutes to identify the number, or, you know, a day's worth of work digging through Excel spreadsheets, that's probably too esoteric of a number. Get down to the core things that are really going to drive your business forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I'm trying to whip a new team in shape. It's tough.
It really is. Yeah.
All right. Craig, I have a question about how you contract with your clients. But before I do, I need to tell you that I personally have very negative experiences on both ends of call centers. One is that a friend of mine who was a very earnest, hard worker was fired from a mortgage call center because she stayed on the phone too long helping the clients. So they clocked her, and that just gave me a bad picture of the industry on the other end. And of course, when I try to call, my big frustration in life is trying to call, you know, vendors or anybody and trying to get a human being to answer me on the phone. So give me some good, helpful words about that before you answer my question.
Oh, I think it depends on what you're trying to do with the call center. For us, we knew our calls were awful. They were 25 minutes long. A good call was 25 minutes. So for us, it was difficult from a financial perspective to manage that because we had to pass the cost on to the client. So, but it comes from what you're trying to achieve with the call center. I think what the mortgage companies, or, you know, depending on your business, I don't want to drag the mortgage companies through the mud, right? But it's just simple math. I can recall sitting in meetings where they were telling the president of the company, and I won't say where this was, but they presented him with a budget because the sales guys were all complaining that our clients were complaining about the answer rates. And she just said, look, I presented him with a 70% answer rate, an 80% answer rate, and a 90% answer rate, and what the costs were for each of those. And he picked 70. So, because it drops down to the bottom line of the company. So I wish I could tell you that there's a great way to do it, but for the most part, those call centers are really expensive to manage, which is why they're shifting so much of it to voice automation or overseas too. I really can't give you great words of wisdom. I think it really just becomes of what is it you're trying to do? Because I can give you great long call times and fast answer rates, but I'm either going to have to eat into my profit or I'm going to have to pass that along to you and your mortgage costs. So do you want to pay more for your mortgage so that you can get through on the call center? That's the trick. Mm-hmm. So I don't think I helped you whatsoever, Rhoda, but that's what they're driving towards.
Answer the question about how you contract with clients.
Sure. So what I do, I really have kind of 2 core businesses. One, I do one-to-one coaching. So with that, I just work typically my standard engagement to start as a 6-month, twice a month coaching session for an hour where we meet and set down early on what their goals are and how we want to build a plan to achieve them over that 6 months. I also invite them into a community that I have where I do a lot of training and additional presentations so they get some additional value out of that. On the other side, I do my business planning where I talk more about this and actually work with either companies one-to-one to help them build it. So like I have a local accounting firm that she's gobbled up 2 other accounting firms and needs some planning around it. So I do it that way. I also do it as a group level where we work as groups and they actually, like, this is more individual business owners and they work as a group to hold themselves accountable. So every month I sit with them when we do that monthly business review, but to hold them accountable, it's fellow business owners because it can be kind of lonely being your own business owner sometimes. So we try and build that community around them. So those are really the 2 areas. On the coaching side, I do everything from business owners to corporate executives. On the other side, I really like working with small businesses. My sweet spot is, you know, that company that's probably got about 15 to 20 employees, they're scaling and growing, and they start needing to build some more formal processes and procedures around it. And that's where I like to step in. That's kind of my favorite area to work with.
Okay. Anybody else got one? John, please.
Greg, I just wanted to thank you for your sharing your time and your talent with us today. One of my big takeaways, reminders from what you shared is the value of and importance of repeating information. I'm not on a team. I don't have a team. I have clients who need to hear things multiple times, right?
Yeah.
One of my favorite ones, and I'm personally getting more comfortable with repeating, right? Setting expectations and telling them what may or may not happen. One of my favorite phrases, this one I'm not ashamed of repeating, Rhoda can attest, is I coach my sellers to get their home picture ready.
Mm-hmm.
And I always talk about picture day and being picture ready.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, there's value in repeating, and I've kind of had fun with it when I'll repeat again a hypothetical or a directive. I'll consciously say it a second or third time, and no one's called me out saying, "Hey, John, you already told me that."
Yeah.
They need to, yeah. So
we have so much coming at us all the time from so many different places. And I wonder, John, for you, when you talk about picture day, do you have to then explain what picture day means? Because picture ready for me, because I have pretty low standards, at least based on my experience with the realtor who I may have mentioned earlier when I thought I was picture day ready versus what she told me I was picture day ready, is very different things. So I just wonder, do you have to then kind of go deeper with them to say, this is what I mean by that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Clear the floors and clear the countertops.
Who knew? But I've got this very beautiful cookie jar. Aren't they going to need a cookie jar or a coffee maker? But that's that's the other piece of this is
sure, definitely.
You have to communicate and say exactly what success looks like.
Any other questions? Anybody else has got any other questions? Rhoda again.
Oh, I just want to say that that's essentially what blogging is.
Mm-hmm.
You're repeating yourself in different words with different images and coming at the same thing from a different slant, sometimes over years and years and years, thinking that even if it's the same reader, they're not going to get it the first time. But if they come back, then they're going to get it a little bit differently, and then they're going to get it yet again. And then one day they're really going to get it.
Yeah. And I think actually what somebody said to me one time with business is you want to get these messages out there and repeat them and tell them to hopefully more and more people. It's like blowing up a balloon. Eventually it gets big enough that somebody sees it when they remember I have this problem. I read about that in the blog. I'm finally going to call those folks.
Yeah, that's the idea anyway. Yeah.
Okay. Has anybody else got any other questions?
Thanks, Jerry.
Yeah, this is really, really interesting because I've been working with my son, and we're putting together a new team. And man, it's like this is like a hit list for getting people aligned, because they're all really super hyper aggressive people, high achievers, and like you said, they're just used to doing their own thing. And now when you're trying to bring organization in, it's like, we're winning. What are you talking about?
But it's not sustainable like this. Yeah.
And that's the thing. How do you have a long-term sustainable vision? Vision without defining vision, without defining a mission, without putting in processes in place. And salespeople who are really, really good hate process.
Yes, they do.
Hate it. Because that means that they've got to take time to think about what they're doing. And they go, no, I'll just go make more money. Yeah. And that's always the response. I'll just go make more money. It's like, no, we need to keep the money we're making. So it's very, very interesting here. So it's been a great presentation.
Thank you.
Let me make sure that I introduce our latecomers here. Alex, if you would give us a minute, please, of minute intro, who you are and where you're from at.
Alex Gray. I'm from north side of Indianapolis, northwest side, and I invest in liquid equities.
Thank you, Alex. And Dr. Holliday, if you're still with us.
I am. So sorry I'm late. I've had a crazy morning. I'm going to put my LinkedIn in the chat. Would love to connect with anyone who is on LinkedIn. So I'm Dr. Rachel Holliday. I'm a primary care doctor for kids and adults. And 6 months ago, I opened up my own direct primary care practice called Indie Direct Docs. We're located at 22nd and Meridian. So direct primary care, for anyone who's not familiar, is kind of like Netflix for your doctor, in that you pay the same monthly fee every month, but you get virtually unlimited access to that doctor. And you get access through in-person visits, emails, texting, phone calls. And when you access, you get the doctor. You don't get the phone tree. You don't get the front office staff. You get the doctor. And we try and keep medical care pretty affordable. Would love to connect with anyone who is interested to talk a little bit more.
No problem. Good to hear that you get the doctor. That way, Craig and people who run these phone operations, you're not going to get hurt. You can get a real doctor, Craig. So I appreciate that. Just as we're starting to come to the close here, I do want to make sure that I want to make sure I repeat. I've learned that from Craig now. I want to make sure I repeat. Next week, our speaker is Tim Johnson. As I mentioned before, he's been working in the cannabis area. Just for those of you who are not aware, we're in the state of Indiana, and we may end up being an island. The states around us of Michigan, Ohio, and Illinois have approved some form of cannabis, either medical or recreational. So that's an interesting challenge that may be coming forward to us as business people. Once again, we are booked up through May 20th. I do need additional speakers. I like to give them time to get aligned. And we will have an admin day that will be April the 4th, and we'll catch up on all the little bitty stuff. I'll send you out information about that. We've got some administrative things to talk about. Last but not least, I want to say again, thank you first off for spending your time on Thursday morning when I could be napping, by the by. And I say this every week, Craig. I tell them, like, if I don't see a lot of faces on here, I will be taking a nap. I'm not saying to say that. So do appreciate you guys showing. I will be seeing you guys next week. So with that, Craig, unless you got a closing word.
Just dropped into the chat there. If you'd like to contact me at craig@clearpathcoaches.com, would love to talk to you more. Or you can join my leadership community at clearpathcoaches.com/community and hit me on either of those. And I will send you out a white paper I put together on 5 simple steps to become a better leader, which talks about what I talked about today, but also some other things to do to help become a better leader for your company. So just hit me up in either of those and we'll get that to you.
And as usual, this does get recorded, and it's a public recording, and that information on how to contact Craig will be in that recording. So we also follow up with that, Craig. We try to make people a star. I cut and edit and cut out all the bad stuff, curse words, etc. And that does get posted to YouTube, usually within 48 hours or so. And you'll receive a contact notice about that, Craig. So with that, unless someone else has got anything super interesting to add to this. Oh, I got to talk to Mike Ryan. Why did you send so much snow to us, Mike, if you're still with us? He's gone. He's left us. But appreciate all you guys showing up. Jim Shepard, don't open that window anymore. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see the 75 degrees out there. Dow, you think you're up? You can give us an intro?
I think I am. Are you hearing me?
Give us an intro, Dow.
My name is Dow. I'm actually in Wilmington, Ohio, and come to this group via Rhoda. So thank you, Rhoda. And I work, it's interesting because Craig, what I do is I train the leaders to have the skills they need to build the organizational health and leadership across their organization, because a lot of leaders just don't have the skills. And so what I do is help build the skills and the actual day-to-day stuff, and help leaders build that stuff up so that they can align their teams, so that they are the kind of leader their team wants to follow and stay in alignment with. And a perfect client for me is a business leader who is looking to add relational skills and improve their organizational health. Thank you.
Thank you, Dow. So with that, I'd like to say, hey, good to see all you smiling faces this morning. Goodbye, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.